Welcome to SVL Free News and Views for Friday, October the 26th. It's going to be a big weekend here in downtown Statesville. We're kind of keeping our eyes on that storm that's kind of inching its way up through here through the weekend. Hopefully it'll clear off for Saturday and Sunday. But first of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Mitchell College, Randy Marion, Piedmont Healthcare, Blue Harbor Bank, Fast Fields, Key to Escape, The Escape Room, Statesville Family YMCA, and Crossroads Cycling. As you can see, I'm here in front of the historic Vance Hotel. This is one of the stops on the haunted Statesville ghost tours. If you haven't done one of this, it's a great way to learn about some of the history of downtown Statesville and Iredell County, along with some of the tales that have been passed down over the years. So this is the tale where there's a little girl who continues to wander about in the Vance Hotel, and I'll tell you all about that if you come out on Friday night to one of the tours or Saturday night. So we're gearing up here for the election. Of course, the early voting continues until November 3rd, and of course election day is November the 6th. But if you want to find out more information about this race, this is the race for the Iredell County Commissioners. We have incumbents James Mallory, Houpe and Marvin Norman, and also we have a newcomer running against them, Beth Kendall. So they're running for 3 seats. The top vote getter will get a 4-year term, and the other 2 will get 2-year terms. So, well, let's listen to Mike Fuhrman as he interviews Marvin Norman, Houpe, James Mallory, and Beth Kendall.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here today with Beth Kendall, who's a candidate for the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. Beth, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're our second candidate that we've had in, and so we'd like to give you a few minutes just to make an opening statement, introduce yourself to voters.
Absolutely. So my name is Beth Kendall, and I'm running for Iredell County Commissioner. I'm running because we need to get more energy in our local government. We need people who are enthusiastic about serving the people of Iredell County, and people who want to work hard to make sure that everyone in Iredell County gets ahead. There hasn't been a Democrat elected to the Board of Commissioners in 25 years. And even if you're not a Democrat, that should concern you. Because you want the people, or you don't want the people who represent you and who make the decisions that affect you every single day to all think the same way. Even if you don't agree with me, the way that I look at an issue might bring up an aspect that you haven't thought of. Just hearing a different perspective and having tough discussions will help us to come up with better solutions. I'm a physician assistant, so I was trained to be a problem solver. Every day I work hard to find solutions for my patients. I was taught to to gather as much information as I could about an issue and then use my knowledge, my experience, and my instincts to try to fix the problem. I think that approach will translate nicely into solving the problems that Iredell County faces. I live in southeastern Iredell County, but I grew up in rural Wilkes County, and I'm a product of the public education system of North Carolina. I went to the local public elementary school and high school, and I had some of the best teachers and coaches that anyone could have ever hoped for. These folks empowered me with the tools that I would need to be successful at one of the best universities in the country, also a public school, UNC Chapel Hill. Following graduation, I went on to get a master's degree and become a physician assistant. Every child in our county deserves the opportunity for that to be their story, to be able to have a great high school, elementary, middle, and high school education that prepares them to thrive upon graduation. We have to invest in education. As I mentioned, I grew up in Wilkes County. Back whenever I grew up there, it was a pretty booming place. We had the Lowe's corporate offices, textile and furniture manufacturing, and even NASCAR. The Speedway was just a few miles from my house. But the world started to change, and it seemed like that brighter days seemed to be in the past. Lowe's headquarters moved, at least in part due to the leaders not educating voters about the importance of investing in education. They didn't pass a school bond. And Lowe's made the decision that without being able to have improving schools or improved schools, they weren't going to be able to recruit the talent that they needed, and they weren't going to be able to grow and cultivate it there within the county. And so they moved. Textile and furniture manufacturers shuttered, and the Speedway shuttered as well, taking away with it a huge source of revenue a couple of times a year. So I've seen firsthand how a lack of investment and a lack of foresight to anticipate a changing world can leave a county struggling to maintain its position. We can't let that happen here. We have to elect leaders who have the courage to lead, to make tough decisions to make our county better, and then to explain those decisions. I offer a different, fresh perspective, different insights than those that are currently on the board. I feel like these 5 men aren't doing a lot of listening. They're just echoing one another. I'll never pretend to know all the answers, but I do know that you learn by listening. And I know that all people have value and deserve to be represented. And in order to be heard, they have to feel like their representative is accessible and approachable. I hope you'll consider voting for me. I would love to have the privilege to be your voice and have the opportunity to work together with the men on the Board of Commissioners to make Iredell stronger and more prepared to face a changing world. We can't be short-sighted. We have to be creative and innovative. And what better way to do that than by electing a fresh, new, energetic, and enthusiastic voice?
Thanks, Beth. Now we'll move on to a few questions.
Absolutely.
As General Mallory mentioned earlier, Iredell County has one of the lowest tax rates in the region. And we're approaching or in the midst of a property revaluation, which conceivably could give the commissioners additional tax revenues to spend in the future unless they decide to roll back the tax rate, which they've done in the past. What are your thoughts on the tax rate and the revaluation? And do you see this as an opportunity, as you alluded to invest more in schools?
Absolutely. So I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody does. Nobody does. It's not a fun thing to do. But I want to live in a county where the thing that brings people here is not just having a low tax rate. I want to be, I mean, it would be a great thing to be known as the county around that has the best schools in the state. And you talk about a way that that's going to bring in more revenue, more economic development. I mean, you're training a workforce. Whenever you go, just think about whenever you go to buy a house, for example. One of the first things that you do whenever you're looking is you look at the schools in that area. You look at the school districts. And if you don't have a great school district, then a lot of times you're going to get passed over, or that house is going to get passed over. And I think that businesses tend to look at that in a similar way, just like I mentioned with Lowe's. You know, if you're not investing in education, then you're not going to be able to get a lot of great companies to come here.
So you mentioned, obviously, the need to increase funding for schools. I mean, do you have a specific plan, or do you have an idea for raising taxes by a certain amount to support the schools?
Right. Well, I mean, just looking at the quarter-cent sales tax, for example, and I know we'll talk more about that. Just think about just using the sales tax as an example. Just think about if our leaders thought that our students were worth a whole penny. I mean, allegedly, a quarter-cent sales tax is going to generate about $6 million in revenue, about $4.5 million of which would go to the schools potentially. If you raised it a whole cent, then it could be 24 million, and 75% of that going to the schools. So, you know, that's certainly something, but, you know, a more sustainable way of being able to have a very clear source of revenue is going to possibly be by raising property taxes. Now,
what are your thoughts on the county's efforts toward economic development and workforce development? Are the commissioners doing enough at this current juncture, or are there other things they could be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it goes back to the schools, and you know, investing in that is certainly going to be something that helps build economic development as much as anything. I think we certainly have to look at, you know, every opportunity for investment that comes before the board. We have to look at it on a case-by-case basis and see what type of incentives we're able to offer the different companies that come here. We need to be doing more, though, to promote the area. I mean, just look at us. We're on the corridor in the center of the merging point of two major interstates, 40 and 77. Statesville should be positioned to be one of the best places for companies to want to come. So I don't think that we're doing as good a job as we should be promoting that.
Okay. Now, as far as the quarter-cent sales tax for the schools, sounds like you support that. Are you actively campaigning for that on your own? Is it part of your campaign?
I'm certainly mentioning it to everybody that I talk to whenever I go out and canvass, whenever I talk to folks on the phone, that I think that they should vote for it. Like I say, I think that our schools, we need to give them everything that we can. So I certainly am actively telling folks that I think they should vote for that.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck on Election Day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. We're here today with General James Mallory, County Commission Chairman, to kick off our candidates forums for the November 6th general election. General Mallory, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Mike.
We'd like to start. We'll have some questions in a few minutes, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to begin with an opening statement. Just discuss anything that you think is vital to the county or the campaign.
Well, we have 3 commissioners up for re-election this year. Every 2 years, we have 3 commissioners stand for election. The top 2 vote getters get 4-year terms. The third vote getter gets a 2-year term. That way, every 2 years, a full majority of the commission rotates before the people. We have a 4-year record, I think, that you can look at across the board and see what the county commission has done to try to posture Iredell County to be the premier community in the Charlotte region in which to live and work and raise a family. Starting off, broadly speaking, we have a job to provide needs and requirements by law for our county citizens. We have opportunities to take advantage of. We have problems to solve, and then we have those desires and wants that the citizens would like to have. And we prioritize those and are stewards of the taxpayer dollar. We have the lowest tax rate of any of the 9 contiguous counties in Iredell County, which, by the way, touches more counties than any other county in the state. And we have the closest county to us is Catawba, which pays a nickel more in property taxes, and most are significantly higher than that. So we keep an eye on the bottom line. We're all 5 right now conservative Republican commissioners, and we work together as a team to address all these needs and opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Now, the county is in the midst or closing in on the property revaluation. So hypothetically, at least, property values will have gone up in the county during the last 4 years. And if you leave the tax rate the same, commissioners will have more revenue in the coming years. I know in the past the commissioners have rolled back the tax rate, at least not always to revenue neutral, but to keep the tax rate low. Assuming that there is more tax revenue in the coming year, what would be your priorities in terms of how to spend that money?
Well, first let's discuss a little bit about the dynamic of the budget. We essentially are locked into a 4-year income stream based on the property revaluation, which occurs on a quadrennial basis. The last revaluation of the 16 townships in Iredell County, 12 actually lost value. So we are dealing with a dynamic where, generally speaking, the first 2 years we have more than enough funds to deal with the needs that are present in the county. And the third year it's pretty tight, and the fourth year we're in the red. So sort of like farming, we have 2 good years, we have a middling year, and then we have a drought. So we have to project out on a 4-year basis enough revenues to cover anticipated increases in expenses, because our increases in demands for services aren't set for 4 years. They continually increase on an annual basis. Every year we have been fortunate enough to have an increase in county revenues based on economic growth. And that has been driven by businesses coming to Iredell County or expanding in Iredell County to provide good jobs for our citizens. So our focus is on economic development to be able to increase the ability to respond to needs, take advantage of opportunities, and solve problems, and do so by increasing the tax base and not increasing the tax rate.
So that brings me to my next question about economic development. Commissioners have spoken repeatedly in the last couple of years about the importance of investing in workforce development, and I know those 2 things go hand in hand. What are the things that the commissioners can do to make sure that we have a local workforce that's ready to take some of these advanced manufacturing jobs that industries are telling us now they're having a hard time to fill?
Well, that's a great question. And key to workforce development is education. Education is joined at the hip with our economic development strategy. And we've been very fortunate to be able to have a significant, robust growth in our economic sector, with businesses expanding and businesses moving into Iredell County to take advantage of what we have to offer, which is good infrastructure, water, sewer, transportation, electric, gas. We have property that's available. All those things that you would normally look to for positive competitive advantage. We also have the lowest tax rate, as I mentioned. But today, the long pole in the tent is workforce development. We are an employment center in Iredell County. We have over 20,000 employees commute into Iredell County to work. When businesses come here, workforce is the primary issue they're looking at. We've gone from an unemployment rate in excess of 5% to less than 4%. And so having the right skill sets, the right soft skills, the ability to be a lifelong learner, ability to work as a member of a team, these are the skills that employers are looking for. And we have to be able to assure them that we have a pipeline to be able to fill those needs in the future if they're going to expand or if they're going to locate here. And to be able to assure them of that, we can't count on in the future necessarily other counties surrounding us sending us their people to work. We can't count on folks necessarily coming down from Ohio to fill our jobs. We've got to develop our own. And so about a year and a half ago, I basically had a all hands on deck kind of meeting to address this issue. We had our economic development team together with representatives from Iredell Statesville Schools, Mooresville Graded School District, and Mitchell Community College to sit down and figure out how do we create this pipeline out of our schools. You know, when a business comes to Iredell County and is wanting to say, well, we have a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan is after we open a business, open a plant to have 150 employees, but we're going to add a couple of shifts, and you have 300 additional folks that we can hire 5 years from now. Well, when you think about it, 5 years from now, the folks that they're going to be looking to hire are in the 7th and 8th grade. And so we have to be able to reach back and get those kids to see what opportunities are available out there, and then be able to connect the dots between what they're doing in school and how that relates to the skills that they're going to need as employees in business, as business owners. As a result of that, our schools got together, they worked out a number of career pathways and career clusters that they're going to be sharing with students at an early age. And we have funded for all of our high schools and middle schools a program called the Edge Factor, which is going to be able to help connect the dots between our students, our teachers, our parents, and our businesses by leveraging the internet-based platform, which is going to be able to highlight the different career opportunities that kids have and be able to allow teachers to be able to show how those skills are used in the classroom, why they're learning something in an academic environment and how it's applied in a business environment, and then be able to engage the parents as well to be able to see what kind of tremendous opportunities we have out there to be able to have jobs that pay $40,000 to $50,000 a year right out of high school with potentially a few certifications. And Mitchell College is our secret weapon as far as that. So kludging together and working our K through 12 and Mitchell College in a collaborative way to create this ready workforce and available workforce is going to be able to attract even better jobs to Iredell County. So the Edge Factor is a piece of that. But where the rubber meets the road, it's our teachers. And so parents need to be aware of these opportunities, and businesses will then be able to showcase what they have that's available locally, and kids will be able to see that.
Okay. Last question, General Mallory. One item on the ballot this fall is the quarter-cent sales tax referendum, which would generate, I think, roughly $8 million a year. The commissioners have agreed that around $6 million of that would go to the school districts, based on enrollment. Is that something that you support? Are you out telling people they should vote for that you're going to vote for that? What's your stance on that quarter-cent tax?
Well, I want to strongly urge people to vote in favor of that quarter-cent sales tax. The reason being, the schools came to us and said, look, we would like you to consider a quarter-cent sales tax for safety, security, and well-being of our students. We took a look at that. We just live in a different culture, different time, different societal challenges. We see it all the time on the news where the school shootings have occurred. We have both internal and external threats that we have to deal with. As a result, when you think about it, 40 years ago when I went to school, the only person that was roaming the halls armed was an assistant principal with a paddle. When my kids went to school, they took the paddle away, but it was still the assistant principal with a stern look. Today, we have to have armed resource officers to be in our schools to be able to provide that level of protection. And that cost is not something that is inconsequential. Our schools have basically absorbed the cost of that additional security requirement out of their current budgets. Our Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies also subsidize the SROs in schools within their budgets. What this sales tax does is give us a dedicated revenue stream that we'll be able to address the additional requirements that we have to be able to provide a safe and secure environment for our students and our staff. Now, what does that look like? Well, when we sat down to discuss that quarter-cent sales tax, and you said $8 million, we're conservative projections is 6.6. Okay. But at the end of the day, the county, because we're growing significantly, 25 years ago, in the mid-90s, we had less than 100,000 population. Today we have 174,000, and it's an aging population. Our older population is growing faster as a percentage rate than our younger population. And there are needs that they have, particularly in terms of public safety and EMF services. And servicing a much larger elderly population requires more ambulances on the road. And when you get particularly in the southern end of the county, it's not so much a factor of distance from that those ambulance crews are stationed in, within a 5-mile distance or 6-mile distance. It's the time that it takes to navigate through traffic that is the determinative factor about how quickly they can respond. So we have a definite need to increase our ambulance cadre of EMTs. Well, that doesn't come cheap. Just to put one ambulance crew on the road with a 24/7 crew is about $750,000. So the county share of that roughly $6 million is about 1.5. We could put 2 ambulance crews out with 1 year's worth of revenue stream. And every year thereafter, obviously, you have a continuing personnel cost, having already purchased the ambulance. We can increase our fleet. We're going to do that anyway, but it's going to take a longer period of time to provide that increase. So when it comes to what does that security and safety expenditure look like for our schools, well, we have the county manager and our Iredell County Sheriff representing law enforcement agencies and Iredell Statesville Schools Superintendent Brady Johnson are working to co-chair a larger committee involving all those stakeholders to be able to look at the criteria, the right priority of programs and the right strategy to be able to provide the appropriate level of safety and security. We can't make things perfectly safe, but there's some obvious things that we can do that we need to be working on. And so once those recommendations have been developed, they'll be presented to the school boards, and the school boards will work through and implement those based on their overall budget. If we have the quarter-cent sales tax, they'll be able to take care of things that we haven't been able to do. Some of those involve actually securing, rooms and creating spaces where people, when they're checking in, can't get beyond without, having a screening. So it's a need. We're going to have to do these things whether we have the additional revenue or not. But if we have to do it without that revenue, it comes at the expense of other line items in our education budget or in our sheriff's department budget. And based on the criteria, which is being developed from the National Incident Management System, that's a federal approach to looking at responses to situations. Based on that, we're going to try to get as far down that list as we can with our given resources. But if we don't have the ability to dedicate a funding stream from this quarter-cent, by the way, all the other counties around us have a 7-cent or higher tax rate other than 2. And so we'll just be getting up to about the level of everybody else. And almost 50% of the sales taxes generated that come to the county are generated from folks that don't even live in Iredell County. It's our hotel and restaurant expenditures that folks passing through Iredell County or visiting Iredell County spend. If we don't have those dollars, then we've got to look to another source for dollars, and the only one left is property taxes. And we think that the sales tax is an equitable way to spread this effort around all of the citizens of Iredell County and folks that use come into the county to provide those needs.
All right. Well, General Mallory, thank you for taking the time this morning, and good luck in November.
Well, thank you very much, Mike.
And I'm here today at the Greater Statesville Chamber of Commerce with Iredell County Commissioner Gene Houpe. Gene, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We've got a few questions for you today for the upcoming election, but we'd like to just start by giving you the opportunity to make an opening statement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm Gene Houpe. I've been on the County Commission now since 2016, and I was on the board for a period in 2014. I'm proud of our accomplishments we've made since I've been there. I'm a proud father of 5. My wife, Dr. Tanya Houpe, is a principal at East Middle School. I have a almost 30-year business background, small business background. I've been a police officer for 31 years now. I'm still a reserve officer out of Rowan County. So I'm very active in law enforcement, and I really strive to make our economy grow. I support our schools, safety, and I pride myself every day in working hard on behalf of the citizens of Iredell County to make it the premier place for them to raise their family and kids to hopefully come back here and have a career one day. And so that's my goal, is to work on recreation and all the various boards and committees I serve on as a commissioner. The amount of effort and time we put into working for you every day is phenomenal, and I appreciate your support. It's been an honor and a privilege to represent you, and hopefully I've earned your vote again for another stint.
Thanks, Gene. I know one of the big things that's coming up on the horizon is the property revaluation. In certain parts of the county, residents can probably expect their property values to increase. Other parts, maybe they'll stay the same or even fall back a little. That seems to be the trend. But there should be a net gain in terms of the overall tax base for the county.
Right.
And assuming that the tax rate stayed the same, then commissioners would have a little more flexibility, let's say, in the budget going forward. Is that the way you view the opportunity to kind of have services keep up with demand and save some money for the future, or kind of what's your view of the property revaluation and the opportunities that gives commissioners?
Well, I think the property evaluation, like you said, the reval, our staff has worked really hard to come up with a fair process and a comprehensive process. And I think that the good thing is I like to see property values increase. That means that the economy and other things are improving. And if we have the disposable income and extra things, that's where I think we rebuild our coffers. The commissioners over the years have done a great job saving money. We have two of the biggest construction projects in the county now going on than we've ever had, and we were able to do that because of the savings and the ability without raising taxes. You know, the public approved the investment of the school bonds in 2014, and that's nothing more than a borrowing mechanism at low interest rates, and enable us to do projects. The schools were much needed at a low interest rate, and it's been a good investment for our communities. But the reval hopefully will give us an opportunity to rebuild our general fund and take care of things that we've put on the back burner for years where the revenue wasn't there. So I think it'll be a good thing.
All right, thank you. Now, one of the hot topics for commissioners is economic development and workforce development. Tell us a little bit about what commissioners can do to drive those efforts.
Well, I'm very proud of our proactive approach to economic development. You know, I tell people every day, you know, one of our biggest drivers for economic development is continue investing in schools. Our teachers, great schools, school choice, our businesses and Mitchell College and the schools have stepped up to the plate, and they've come up with, you know, edge factor, workforce development for kids that may not be going to college. You know, for years we've always concentrated on children that's going to four-year traditional universities. We've got technical training now with NASCAR and other technical schools. You've got kids that can go directly into workforces. Our businesses have stepped up and made investments in internships and things like that. But, you know, I'm on the airport commission as one of the boards I serve on for county commission. Having an airport locally allows businesses to come here and put headquarters here and fly in. That's phenomenal. And I tell people every day, a lot of our investments we do on their behalf impacts them positively, even though they may not directly enjoy it. Like grandparents or parents that may have kids, people that may not have kids in schools. The better the schools, the businesses look at that when they come. The more disposable income, you know, the better jobs they have. So our economic development is phenomenal, and we work really hard and try to be proactive in all of those areas, and I'm proud of that.
All right. You mentioned school funding a little bit. Most people will tell you, and your wife's probably one of them, that you know, the greatest indicator of a student's success is having a highly qualified classroom teacher. And we know to get the best teachers, you have to be competitive with Mecklenburg County and Rowan County and all the other counties around us. And one of the things our Iredell Statesville schools did during the economic downturn was they cut the local stipend that they pay teachers. Right. And they've been trying to build that back up, but funding has kind of been an issue. So what are the things that you think that the commission could do in the next 2 or 4 years to increase funding for schools, and particularly to help the school district raise teacher salaries?
I think we have to continue informing the public about the investment of schools and the positive impacts that great schools and choice programs and things have on our economy. The teachers, we've got to be able to attract and maintain and retain quality teachers. To do that, you've got to be able, like you said, to compete with salaries, supplements, and things like that. I'm very proud working on the education task force for the county, is the school systems work well with us, Mitchell College. We have asked those guys, just like the quarter cent that's on the ballot. That's one of the funding mechanisms. To do more than we're doing today, we need a new revenue stream. Well, that is the fairest tax we could ask our citizens to invest in, because the majority of that tax is paid by citizens that do not even live in Iredell County. They're traveling through Iredell County. And you don't want to keep going back to the property owners, but you want the fairest tax. The public wants transparency. They want to know what it would be used for. And the school systems are elected, the boards, just like we are. So the final decision, I think, is theirs to what they would do with it, but I think they would use it for safety and security, health and well-being. I would hope some of it would go to teacher supplements and things like that. They have made cuts vitally that has negatively impacted our classrooms, teacher aides. I think the SAPs that are counselors and support personnel are very important. But the problem is we've got to do a better job of telling the public of why those positions are important, how they positively impact your kids that are in the school systems. And we're trying to do that, and I'm proud of the effort we're doing with that. But the school funding has to increase. It is an investment, there is a return, but we've allowed people to believe over the years that it's a line item on a spreadsheet. And we can no longer do that. They're one of our biggest and secret weapons for economic development in Iredell County. So the teachers, we're fighting for them. We have to work with our school systems. We're about 70 to 72, I think, in our local funding rating for the county. But if you add in state and federal funding, our school systems are at the bottom of the rankings. So we locally do a better job. I'm proud that our tax rates are lower than our surrounding counties. And so the quarter-cent, that's why it's the fairest tax. That's why it would be vital. I hope people really consider that. It's just like the projects we're doing with the jail and our econ building are important. We had to do that. The federal government was going to come in on us, with the money we're paying outside the county to house a prisoner. And we call it the pump and haul from the old prison. You're basically paying for other counties' jails when you house prisoners outside. So I would rather build more schools than build more jails. But those are investments. As a commissioner, sometimes I tell people we have to do things we don't want to do. But I want them to know on their behalf we are making good, sound decisions, objective decisions. But economic development, schools are tied to that, school funding, top-tier employees are vital to that.
Well, my last question was about the quarter-cent sales tax. Just to expand on that a little bit, are you publicly stumping for people to vote for that?
Absolutely, and I'll defend that in this way. I never support a tax increase as an elected official without voter approval. It's their money. But what I want them to understand is the money would be spent on safety, security, student well-being. But the school boards that are elected by us have the final say. But the sheriff does a good job, with safety in the schools, the police chiefs, the school system in general with the revenue they have available. Updating fencing and camera systems and security measures in general would be what it would be used for. But I want people to understand to do more than we're doing today, there has to be a new revenue stream. That is most important. That's the fairest revenue stream. The majority of it, again, is paid by people that travel through Iredell County. And as one of their county commissioners, everybody pays that. And it doesn't come from groceries or gas or things like that. Mm-hmm. It is basically the sales tax. And the revenue would be spent wisely. There's accountability and oversight. The school system just finished in Iredell Statesville the 12th consecutive year of an audit with no findings. And so, as one of the education task force members, we work very closely with the school board and their administrations and Mitchell College. And I want the ladies and gentlemen to understand that these schools are doing a great job with the revenue they have. They're spending it on what they say they're spending it on. If people have a problem with their priorities, then they need to talk to the school boards and the school administrators, because it's not our job to run the schools. It's our job to help adequately have the facilities for those places, because it is so important to our economic development. But every citizen in this county benefits from great schools.
All right, well, thank you, Gene. I appreciate it, and good luck on election day.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here today with Iredell County Commissioner Marvin Norman. Marvin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Now, this is the latest in a series of interviews with all the candidates for Iredell County Commission, and we'd like to ask you a few questions today, but first give you the opportunity to make an opening statement and introduce yourself to the voters.
Well, I want to start out, some of the voters maybe you don't know me here in Iredell County. Again, my name is Marvin Norman. I'm from a family of 12 kids, and we were sharecroppers coming up, and I've always lived in Iredell County other than when I was in military service. And from that, I grew up again, but back then it's a traditional segregated school system. And I went to what they call Unity High back then until I was in the 11th grade. My senior year was spent at North Iredell High, and that being because my mother worked at North Iredell in the cafeteria. And I was supposed to have gone to South. She said, "Oh no, you're going with me. Me and my twin brother and my little sister." So I spent that last year, which was a good year because we had a lot of stuff to work with. In fact, I took classes I didn't even need. I always had like core classes. But then from there, as I graduated from North Iredell, I was out for about a year, and then I went to Uncle Sam's Army. Went to the Army Reserve program, became a drill sergeant. But It was not what I thought it was. I wanted to be an airborne ranger, but at that time Vietnam was pretty much shut down. So the ranger school was full, so I didn't get to go to do that. And then, so I stayed in there. I put about 8 years of reserve time and active duty time. And when I got out, went to work back at Lowe's Foods, where I was at when I left. And then a short time later, I was hired to open the first ABC store down there as a clerk, because I had done the clerk's work. And from there on, I just worked there for about 4.5, 5 years. Then went to work for Crescent Electric at the time, that's what it was called. They recruited me there because I had some experience in warehousing. And stayed there for 29.5 years. Enjoyed every bit of it. And I held every position from the beginning was the janitorial position, all the way up to human resource manager and customer service manager for the whole 19 counties. And it was a good experience for me. I've had a lot of different opportunities when it comes to managing people and managing situations and businesses and that type of thing. And from there, when I didn't mention much, but when I came out of service, I stayed back in reserves, and that I loved that real good. But my work did not allow me to stay in the reserves. I would have stayed and retired from there. But some people don't understand why you do what you do when it comes to the military, and that's why I didn't stay there. And then again, going back after being retired from Energy United, after 20.5 years, we were bought out. They bought older senior employees out, and I would have been there for probably 40 years. I liked it that well, and had so many opportunities. And here I've been a county commissioner for 16 years now. I've served both chair and vice chair of the board. Before that, I was on the Mitchell Board of Trustees. I served there vice chair and chair. And I served that board for 20 years. And I enjoyed that because that allowed me to, Mitchell allowed me to get education I couldn't have gotten. Because I was a non-traditional student, and when I come out of the Army, I went to Mitchell, got my 2-year degree, and transferred to UNC Charlotte. I got my 4-year degree. And then from now, I did not mention it. I got to mention the wife because I want to go home. I married to Juanita Tempton Norman, and we have 2 kids. Alan, he works for the school system. In fact, he does IT work. And then I got a daughter named Marcy, and she lives in West Virginia. And we've got 6 grandkids from age 12 to 22. And you'll see the 22-year-old always helping with my campaign. He's helped me since he's 4-year-old. And he's a good guy, and that's Donald. He's the oldest one. And he works for a company called Hauser. I'm putting the name, sure, the name's Hauser. And they work at autistic kids. Of course, he likes that. He really does. And I'll stop the introduction right there.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's get into a few of the issues that the commissioners deal with. First, the county's in the middle of the property revaluation. Hopefully, the county's tax base will increase from the last time, and if the tax rate stays the same, then ideally the commissioners have a little more revenue to deal with.
Yes.
In the coming years. I guess what would be your priorities in terms of how to spend any additional revenues that might come about as a result of the revaluation?
Well, I've stated the whole time I've been a commissioner, my number one chore for the county and the citizens is to make sure we keep good law enforcement. I worry about that simply because on the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, law enforcement, fire protection, they're on duty. And so those 2 entities, education, as far as I'm concerned, we've kept up pretty good with it. The only place we're lacking in education, you'll probably talk about this later, is in resource officers, security. I'm concerned about that, and this has to do with the elementary schools. I think we're going to take a real serious look at that because nowadays things are changing. And whether we want to admit it, they're changing or not, they are. We're going to be protecting our kids, our teachers, and our parents. So we got all 3 working in that system, in that system.
Now, next question. As a commissioner for 16 years and somebody who's been on the Mitchell board as well, workforce development is probably something that's important to you, as well as economic development in general.
Yes.
What are the things that the commissioners can do to drive those things, and what do you see happening in the next 4 years in those areas?
I think, my wife worked for the Employment Security Commission for 31 years, and she was always in workforce development. The thing I think we need to do when it comes to make sure that we help the school system guide the kids in the right direction. And what I mean by that is, a lot of kids are not going to four-year universities. We need jobs in the county. We need training in the county for the kids that are going to work here in the county. And right now, I think you know this, there's some real good high-paying jobs coming to the county. We need to get them educated, and the ones that are staying, and we need to make sure that we provide the right opportunities for them to get jobs and go to work. And get good training. We got to have training, because we've got Mitchell College that tries to work with that, but we've got to work with them to make sure that happens.
All right, and what about on the economic development front in terms of creating new opportunities, in terms of new jobs?
I think that we've done well in the last couple of years with that by merging both economic development, the Mooresville and the Stateville together. We'll save some money, and as a whole, it becomes a one big picture. And the economic development guys will be serving the whole county. And if it don't fit here in Mooresville, it'll fit here in Stateville, because we've got a lot of parks and things, and they've got that whole picture now. And I think once we do that, we'll do good. And that Corvair technology plant down at exit 31 is a prime example. When they said the average wage be $110,000. Our kids no longer will have to leave our county to get a good job. They get a job here if they get educated right. Okay.
Well, that leads us into my next question. Plenty of educators would tell you that the #1 indicator of a high-performing student is a high-quality teacher, classroom teacher.
Yes.
And in order to have those teachers, we have to compete with Mecklenburg and Rowan and Catawba counties in terms of salaries for teachers. And so one area where we can help that is by increasing our local supplement that we pay teachers. I know the school district cut that during the recession, and they've been working hard to try to build that back up, but they haven't got to the pre-2007 level. Is that something that you would support as a county commissioner, finding extra revenue to boost that local supplement? And what other areas do you think the commission can do to help with school funding?
Well, I think school funding, if it's used properly and used right, it can go a long way. In other words, if we give, as commissioners, the school system money for the teachers for a chance to get an additional amount of money, it should be used for that. In other words, for me, it's not set well when we're saying we need one thing and we give it to you, use it for another. In other words, use it for the purpose. I don't have a problem with the teachers getting their just due. I've had 2 sets of kids go through. I mean, my kids went through there. Now my grandkids have gone through there. I have no problem trying to help. We always fuss and raise hand about buildings and everything. That's always brought to us about this is not right and that's not right. Very seldom do we hear a lot about salaries locally. I think it's an effort that not only does the state need to be looking at, that the local school board and the county need to be looking at. How do we get these teachers to that point so that we don't lose them, if you know what I'm saying to you? They get to teacher supplements, but if we give money for teacher supplements, then that's what it should be used for. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Well, that leads us into the last question. The last item on the ballot is the quarter-cent sales tax referendum. Could probably have been worded a little better, but that's what you're voting either for or against. Have you taken a public stand on that? And if you have, tell us what it is and maybe defend your position.
Well, there's only one stand for as I'm concerned, from where I see it, and that's to get proper protection for our kids in this classroom. Now, the K through 8, we've got resource officers all the way up in the middle schools. We've got resource officers in the high schools. But in elementaries, they're just vulnerable, as far as I'm concerned. And again, we got principals there that, and you may not be aware of it, but in the morning, afternoon, when the parents come to pick them up, there's a whole lot of discussions going on that the principal shouldn't be involved in. We should have someone there with arrest powers, and that's what I'm saying. They can take care of situations that occur, and I've heard about several. But I feel like if we're not doing our job if we don't give them some help there. Or they can go ahead and tend the kids and let the resource officer tend the situations. Yeah, and I'm all for it. I'm for that. But of course, it tells sales tax. For me, the main purpose for that is for resource officers. It's not for nothing else. And I know that we said we need this, and that, and the other, but
so that'd be your first priority.
Oh yes, sir.
Once you take care of that, then you can maybe look at some other things.
We can see what's left, and we can look at something else. But I just think about the principals, teachers that are in those schools where there is no resource officer. And they're not trying to direct traffic, they're trying to get parents. Parents don't always cooperate, if you know what I'm saying to you. And they get a little frustrated at each other. There's nobody there to handle that situation. Now we're fortunate that the sheriff's department makes visits every day at all schools. But likewise, we better off if we've got somebody right there on hand that can call and get help if they need it. And the principal don't have to wait to get somebody to come, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time today to answer our questions, and good luck in the election.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking your time to interview us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it. Some good information about the folks running for Iredell County. And to learn out more, and you can also go to our website as we continue a coverage throughout this cycle here until the election on November the 6th. So if you haven't done it already, go to svlfreenews.com and sign up for your email edition, which comes out every morning at 5 a.m. And you'll stay tuned right here for all the latest in Statesville and Iredell County. And I'll see you on Monday.